Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and our topic today is the future of Black America. And with us to talk about that small subject, two men with extraordinary experience. Dr. Roscoe Brown, legendary Tuskegee Airman, president of Bronx Community College, and former host of African American Legends, which preceded this show. He did it for 30 years. Right here on CUNY TV. And the very Honorable David Dinkins, the first and so far only African-American mayor of New York City, Columbia University professor, author, and still tennis fanatic. Were you out playing tennis this morning, David?
I'm afraid my tennis days are beyond me, past that is. But I do like to watch.
I'm sure that you're watching. And before we came on the air, you were talking about how you two met, and now David was working in a liquor store, Roscoe, is that?
Father-in-law's liquor store right down the street from where my mother-in-law lived at 770 St. Nicholas Avenue.
Yes, so this is in Harlem.
And I heard that he was a smart young man, but he had a good eye for ladies.
That sounds like me.
That sounds like him. But you were in law school at the time as well.
I was. I went to Brooklyn Law School during the day and worked at night.
Right.
In the liquor store. As a matter of fact, in those days, NYU, from which wonderful institution Roscoe graduated, they wouldn't admit you if you had to work.
Oh, really?
But Brooklyn had the best record at that time of its students passing the bar the first time, better than NYU, Columbia, Fordham, Harvard, all of them. So we used to say you didn't learn much law, but you learned how to pass the bar.
Percy Sutton
was a useful thing.
As well.
Percy went as well. So now I always ask my guests about their childhood, where they were, and I've read your book, so I know your quote about, we were as poor as hell, but we didn't know it. And this is Trenton, New Jersey. So tell us a little bit about that, your early influences.
Well, I was born in Trenton, 1927. My mother and father separated when I was 6 or 7. My mother was a domestic, and she came here to New York. And that's the point at which I said we were poor as hell, but I didn't know it. Because my mother and my grandmother, they scrubbed my clothes. They were always clean, sewed up the holes. I had toys. When the little white children got through with the toys, they gave them to my mother. And interesting story. Roscoe, I don't know whether they ever told you this, but Sol Wachtler, who became the chief judge of the Court of Appeals.
Right, chief judge.
And my mother worked for his family at one point. And his folks used to say, our son's in law school. And my mother said, my son's in law school too. And we became good friends.
Right. And from those beginnings, became the great mayor of New York City and master of so many other things. Roscoe, what about your childhood now? This is 1922, right? You were born.
1922. I grew up in Washington, D.C., which was the largest collection of middle-class black folks in the country. Had a wonderful school system. Even though it was segregated, it was actually better than the white school system because many of the black civil service and professional people sent their kids to their public schools, whereas many of the upper-class whites went to private school. Dunbar High School was a school that produced the first black federal judge. Of
course, the famous Dunbar.
Produced the first black cabinet officer, the first black woman congressperson, and produced Roscoe Brown. Many of our classmates became doctors, lawyers, etc. After graduating, I went to Springfield College, which is known as the home of basketball, volleyball, and sports medicine. I was the valedictorian of my class, and then from there I went to the Tuskegee Airmen to learn to fly, where your father was one of our instructor pilots.
That's right, John Young, and my sister came to watch the show today because we're so proud of our dad was a part of that. You were too young, David, for the Tuskegee Airmen, right?
Yeah, he's a Marine. See, the Tuskegee Airmen received a Congressional Gold Medal in 2007 for our great activity. And eventually the Mumford Point Marines, the black Marines, received one as well. And Dave called me the first day and said, you know what? We got the gold medal.
No, not quite. I
Yes.
called him and I said, Roscoe, you're a real hero. And I didn't do anything.
Well, the war was over by the
And-
time you were just
No,
in
the war ended while I was in
Right,
boot camp.
right,
So I got Roscoe's permission to go get the medal.
right.
Because if he had said no, I wasn't going to go.
Right. Well, now you were actually a commanding officer, captain of the Tuskegee Airmen. Is that
The squadron I was in, the 100 Fighter Squadron, I followed Andrew Turner, who was also a Dunbar High School graduate, as the commander. I was the commander of the squadron at the end of the war. We shot down 3 jet planes on March 24th, 1945, which gave us the record of being one of the first groups to shoot down German jet planes. I shot down the first one and got a lot of publicity.
While flying a prop.
while flying a prop? Was it a prop plane?
Yeah, well, I was
Right.
flying P-51, number 7.
Right, right. Oh, great. Well, you're his. You're filling in the.
No,
blank.
I love to tell people. I said not only did he was one of the first to shoot down a German jet, but he was flying a prop. Think about that.
Extraordinary, extraordinary. And now, the last time I saw you two together, it was when the municipal building was being named
Oh yeah.
in honor of David Dinkins. That's quite some handsome building for a handsome man. You know, that's
Well, I'm.
huge.
I told him I'd been happy with a lamppost, but
But you got
I was
this
very,
magnificent municipal
very
building.
pleased.
Right, and now David, the new mayor, and his wife both work for
Blasio,
you.
right.
Bill de Blasio and Charlene McCray both work for you. And they were giving shout outs. They were talking about David, but Roscoe, somehow you were also the star of the day. David called you out.
Yeah, he
Bill de
did.
Blasio called you out.
Well, the one thing about David, he calls me fighter pilot, and I call him 106. So therefore, we have a mutual admiration society, and in many ways, it's better to have a building named after you than a bridge, because people remember the old name of the bridge, but the new name of the building, they always remember the Dinkins Building.
And that's a fantastic, fantastic thing. And I went to, I was a reporter for a zillion years. I don't think I'm going to match you, Roscoe, in doing this show for 30 years, but I'm so honored to be sitting here. You did such a fantastic job. I traveled to South Africa with you when I was a reporter for NBC to meet with Nelson Mandela. And then you invited him to New York. And that
Right.
must have been, I know you've talked about it as being one of the highlights of your.
Well, it was, and he stayed with my bride and me in Gracie Mansion, and I questioned whether or not the bed in which he was going to sleep was sufficiently long, and my bride said, "No, it'll be all right." And it wasn't until 2 years later, 1992, when Mandela was here, he'd come back,
Right.
and I took Al Gore and Bill Clinton to meet him. And then later I looked at photographs, and I realized that Clinton is just a shade taller than Mandela. And then I understood. You see, in my mind, he was 10 feet tall.
Right, right, right. In all of our minds, he was 10 feet tall.
What a man.
What a man. And you still serve on the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund.
Children's Fund, right.
What the work that does.
Well, the main thing, there's a Mandela Children's Fund USA, and our main job is to raise money for a hospital in South Africa. That's what he wanted.
Right. And so you're continuing
Yeah, I am.
his work.
Yeah, Franklin Thomas is a
Former president.
large part of
Ford
that.
Foundation, right.
Right.
Right. So now, do you all ever see each other now? You're like best
Almost every week.
See him all
every
the time.
week? That started from the liquor store in Harlem to now. So what happens when you two get
Well,
together?
when you get to be an elder statesman like Dave Dinkins,
Yes.
everybody wants to know him, and everybody wants to give him ideas. So many times they call me, could you call the mayor and ask him X, Y, and Z? So I call the mayor, and the mayor says, if you want to do it, do it. So we have a great relationship in that way. But the main thing that I admire about Dave, same thing I admire about Nelson Mandela, he's looking to the future. How do we build a future for our young people in our community? It's one thing to say, we did this, we're the first to do this, we don't only want to be the first, we want to be involved all the way.
Right.
And that's really what the future is going to be about.
Right, and that's what I want to talk with you two about. I want to read a bit from David's inaugural speech, and that was January 2nd of 1990. I was
One of the proudest days of my life in New York City.
and mine, and I was covering it. You know, it was a fantastic, fantastic moment. And what he said, what you said was, "I stand here before you today as the elected leader of the greatest city of a great nation, to which my ancestors were brought, chained, and whipped in the hold of a slave ship. We have not finished the journey toward liberty and justice, but surely we have come a long way." You're getting applause from Roscoe from that.
One of my
was-
brilliant writers wrote that.
Still, it might have been Charlene McRae.
Might have been Charlene.
As it comes around. So now that gives me chills. As I want to find out from both of you, you know, how far do you think we've come, and what still needs to be done?
Well, remember that we come from slavery to segregation to integration. And that's a tremendous amount of progress in about 100 years. The fact, however, is that we have slipped backwards as the internal racism that exists on the undercurrent of our society has let some people go ahead, has kept the masses of black folks behind. So what we need to do is to organize to raise the consciousness of everybody, but at the same time use our political power, which we have a lot of, to change some of the things that happen in our society. Education, healthcare, housing, criminal justice. That's what we ought to be doing, and I think the way to do that is to organize.
And Mr. Mayor, you created Safe Streets, Safe Cities, and reduced the crime rate in New York City. Never got full credit for that, you know, that you had done such a good job.
Well, we were very pleased with our success in that regard. It took a heap of doing, because in order to get the resources, we had to put a surcharge on personal income tax, which can only be done with the assent of Albany. And one white Republican state senator, when I told him, I said, "People are dying in the streets. We got to have this legislation." And he said, "Mr. Mayor, my constituency is concerned with auto theft and graffiti." And I hit the ceiling. But we were able to succeed. And it's a broad we. Had it not been for people like Bill Lynch and Milton Mollin, who have been the presiding justice of the appellate division.
And Bill Lynch, a political mastermind,
and
genius.
who's gone,
Right.
died much too young at 72.
Right.
But I had a lot of wonderful, wonderful people, and they are the ones who really deserve the credit for that which we were able to achieve.
So now we have crime rates in the city. We've had black men and black women dying at the hands of police over the last couple of years. It has gripped this nation all over the country, not only in New York City, although, you know, a couple of spectacular cases here. You know, blacks are now 60% of the prison population.
Well, there's a whole question of unintended consequences of the war on crime. Too frequently that involves young African-American males for things like drug possession and drug selling. And the sentences are so long that they go to prison and learn other criminal techniques. So one of the things we have to do is to recognize that policing should be fair, it should be open, and it should not be based on racial stereotypes. On the other hand, sometimes the black community participates in this by saying, you get those criminals out of the housing project. The way to do this is, rather than to criminalize every activity, go into rehabilitation, go into youth programs, go into education programs, go into job training programs. That's what we need to do. And what Dave did when he did his Cops and Kids, he also started the Beacon Schools, which were schools that are open from 8 in the morning to 11 at night, where they had the school day from 9 to 3, but they had extracurricular activities and so on in the evening. That's the kind of model that we need to be building on even today.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect school day to me, you know.
Well, we reasoned that the bricks and mortar were already there. Why not use these institutions for hours beyond the normal hours of instruction? And one of my brilliant speechwriters in a speech spoke about beacon schools, and that name survives even today, beacon schools. And some wonderful people, Barbara Sable was fantastic, George Murphy. We had some wonderful people. They are the ones that got it done.
So now, how do we get it done now? So we know that our kids need more education. They need safer places to be. They would need the schools open. They need dropping of this sort of racist tagging of men and women who are black. Yes?
My view is that we can celebrate the past, what we've done in literature, art, music, sports, politics, but we have to organize for the future, the new world of technology, the new world of interaction, the new world of education. And what we need to do in our own community is to organize within ourselves youth programs, adult programs, technical programs, and at the same time use the political process to put pressure on elected officials, including from our own community, to raise the funds that need to do these things. And then to make sure we do them with quality so that we don't have programs that just are programs in name only. We want programs that produce results. And one of the things I like to see in President Obama, he says, race to the top. Let's do what we can do the best we can do it. And that's what we ought to be doing in our black community today.
So you think it's an internal thing, that are we not doing our best within our communities?
I don't think we're doing our
better.
best, but the reason we don't do our best is we don't have the resources. And what we need to do is to use our energy and our efforts to get the resources to do the kind of programs that will help us. One of the things we have to do is to hold each other accountable. How do you treat your fellow person? How do you treat your children? How do you treat your peers? Those are the kind of things we need to do. And I think there's a number of role models for this. Some of our athletes and some of our political leaders have been talking about treating ourselves better. As they say, Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter because we make a contribution to the human race.
David, you have anything? I know that you every year hold your leadership gatherings that are well attended by city
we have
and
our
state leaders.
leadership forum. We have had the good fortune of having had some wonderful people.
And tackling serious problems. The last one I went to was about affordable housing. And now that I'm a affordable housing protester, going to the steps of City Hall tomorrow, as a matter of fact, because of this definition of what affordable housing for whom.
But see, this is an example of how we get things done together. I had for some years a woman named Carol Banks, who was my assistant. Wonderful work. I got Carol Banks from Roscoe Brown. And there came a time when Carol had to retire to help take care of her mother, and I got Linda Hamilton from Roscoe Brown.
Oh, right, who's here today, who's so wonderful. Thank you,
So
Linda, for
that's the way it goes. And
right, and now you've got coming to the next leadership forum, Loretta Lynch,
Loretta
the
Lynch.
Attorney General, who's actually being mentioned as would be the perfect Supreme Court justice. So, I hope your magic rubs off on her when she comes. But you're tackling in these forums, you get the leadership to come together to think through things. Roscoe is always there as well.
See, there's no easy route to equality because the people in power benefit from inequality. And one of the things that we are looking at in this new presidential race is how do you even the bar for everybody, so that everybody has a chance. Not everybody's going to be a millionaire. That's unusual. But everybody should have a chance for a good paying job, participate in good, solid education, and believe in the future for everybody, not just one group. So it's an inclusionary process, but an inclusionary process that starts from within. And so one of the things you do in your program, Black America, is to let people understand that there are many different points of view, many different skills in our community, and we should celebrate them all. And of course, I believe that we should hold each other accountable for what we do. The mayor and I have disagreed on certain things, and we get together and we try to work it out. One of the things that
Like
we
what?
did.
What did you disagree?
I can't imagine ever disagreeing.
Well,
with
one of the
Roscoe.
things we were dealing with when we had the AIDS epidemic, we had
Oh,
a
yeah.
needle exchange program. And that was a question that the mayor wasn't sure what he was going to do. So he got us in Gracie Mansion. We stayed there at 2 o'clock in the morning. We worked out some details of way of having a safe, effective needle exchange program, which helped to reduce
Right.
the number of HIV/AIDS cases.
But you see, it isn't quite accurate to say that we disagreed. It took Roscoe, Deborah Fraser Howes, and some other wonderful people to persuade me that they were right, because one, you reduce the spread of AIDS by having these uncontaminated needles.
Sure.
And then number two, there are a certain number of people who learn about the drug programs, and if it's 1%, if it's 2% that get off of drugs because of this knowledge, it's a good thing.
So he's been a good advisor through
Oh,
through the years.
Fantastic.
I did want to ask you a question, Dr. Brown, about college tuition. Do you think it should be free for everyone?
Well, the college education is the extension of public education. The question is, how do you make it free and pay for it? One of the problems we have in public education is underfunded. And until we figure out a way of getting a balance, not everybody who makes $1 million ought to get a free tuition. There should be some type of income cap. And in a sense, we did have free tuition in the city university until the economics of the city forced on tuition. And one of the things we try to do is to keep the tuition low, get as much financial aid, which again has to be reoriented so that it doesn't cause people to graduate with $100,000 worth of debt. So they say the devil is in the details.
Right.
You want everybody to have an opportunity. Everybody should have an opportunity, but you have to earn it in some way through your achievement and through your economic contribution to society.
Yeah, I want to get your quick reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement on campuses and the streets. They've had a great deal of success under this hashtag, loosely organized by getting college presidents to retire, to resign, police chiefs to resign. One would think in some cases much more efficient than the old school sort of political waiting gradualism. So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't want this program to end without making this point, that we are asked each year, people like Dr. Brown, on Dr. King's birthday and Black History Month, and we are asked about how things better. Has Dr. King's dream been realized? And my constant response is to remind people that some of us, even I, am almost as old as Dr. Brown. And so we lived through a lot of the segregation and discrimination. And I can remember in as late as the 50s, we were told, you Negroes shouldn't be so pushy. They only lynched 5 last year. And so my answer always is, things are better. They're not what they need to be. Thank God they're not what they used to be.
Well, I think the Black Lives Matter has made a difference. It has to do with an awareness. And you have to build awareness in order to make change. And I think they've done a good job with that. One of the things that you get caught up in is the details. How do you do this? What do you do? I think that obviously some police officers are doing a great job. Others have racial stereotypes. We have to work to break those racial stereotypes and hold the police officers accountable for their activity. At the same time, in our community, we have to work to make sure that our young people try to do the right thing.
Okay, very quickly, I need in a word or two to finish this sentence. The strength, the power of Black America lies in
Our optimism and our effort.
Our youth.
our youth. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being here today. You're
I want to thank you.
fantastic. I'm so glad you guys are still friends. 94 and 88, 89. And one of us having a birthday. That's you.
Oh, really? Thank you. All right.
All right.
Happy birthday. We have two.
Keep on flying to the top. There you go.
We are. You want to make a wish?
Ooh.
Make a wish. Thank you all so much
Make
for
a wish.
being with us. We'll see you the next
We
time.
got it. All
Hey,
right.
you got that wish.